Hello everyone, my name's Cliff and welcome back to my channel. This is Cliff's Dark Gems. Today I'm going to be talking about all the books I've read in the month of June. Stay tuned. First of all, I'd just like to say that I feel I've had a very good month of reading. I finished 8 books this month, and considering my April-May reading slump, which I think is what I went through a bit, I'm actually very happy with where I'm at the moment. And I'm also almost halfway through Robert McCammon, Mystery Walk, which I probably should finish by tomorrow. Okay, I'm going to be talking about these books in order, from my least favourite to my most favourite. But really, all my reading this month has been 3 or 4 stars, 1 5-star. I'm finding I'm actually giving 5 stars very rarely these days. I think I was giving them too easily, so it really has to blow me away. The book has to be really special to get my 5-star approval. I want to start talking a little bit first about the book that I'm reading by Robert McCammon, Mystery Walk. It is a magical read so far, and I'm really not surprised considering the fact that Swan Song and Boy's Life are 2 of my favourite novels. It's just magical, the way that he writes. Oh man, this guy can write so beautifully. And it's about 2 small boys at the moment. They both have sort of special abilities, I don't know to call it special powers. And the one is a preacher's son. This preacher basically goes around and does his old tent revivals. And the son, this particular son, can miraculously heal the sick, but the power is not a good one, as we learn, and there's some sort of serious darkness within this boy. The other boy, on the other hand, has inherited his mom's power. It's a special ability, and he can see ghosts, he can see dead people, and we still yet to learn what he's going to do, how he's going to use his abilities. Well, these 2 boys are obviously on some kind of collision course, and yeah, I'm just really enjoying it so far, and I will be sure to give a full book review on this. It's that good. Okay, let's start with my biggest disappointment for the month, and that was Stephen King's Cell. Now, I'm not saying that this is a bad book. I think I'll give it about 2.5 stars, so it had some really good portions. Oh, let me just add there that all of these reviews I've already done. All these books I've already done many reviews on, and you can find them in my reading updates for this month. So I'm not going to be going on and on about them at length, but just give you a little idea of them, of why I liked them, why I did not like them. Okay, so let's start with Cell. It starts off with a bang, and it's very violent at the beginning. And this pulse sends these people absolutely crazy, and before you know it, people are biting and hacking, and they just lose everything. They're just down to their most animal instincts, and it's actually a really good beginning. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the survivors that grouped together, and I like the way these zombies kind of evolve and they become more than what they were previously, and they develop this kind of hive mind. But about midway through the book, it just kind of loses me. It's repetitive, and it's like Stephen King was writing and didn't have a clue where he was going with the story. And I also found the ending kind of disappointing. So it went from perhaps 4-star in the middle of the book, and it just plummeted down. I just found myself losing interest, and really Stephen King does a lot better than this. This is low-tier King for me. That's so. Okay, next up we have a beloved classic, and I really wanted to enjoy this book, as it was a favourite of so many of my viewers. That's Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Now, once again, there are large parts of this book that I actually really enjoyed. Mary Shelley writes beautifully, her prose is very elegant. Some of her descriptions of the beauty of the scenery were fantastic and well told. However, that's also a weakness I find, is that sometimes she's a little bit over wordy, over descriptive, and that got a bit much for me. It kind of slowed down the story, and the story is a good one. It's an excellent concept, but yeah, there were just a couple of flaws in this novel that took away the enjoyment for me. The biggest problem I had with this novel is Frankenstein himself. He really is the most unlikable, selfish, miserable, whiny character that I've ever come across. Or maybe I've seen worse, but he really detracted from my enjoyment of the story. And the fact that his actions and his choices resulted in the monster becoming a monster, really not a pleasant character for me to read about. The monster, on the other hand, is far more sympathetic, and you really feel for him, rejected by his maker, rejected by society, and all he wants is love. All he wants is somebody to pay attention to him, and he becomes quite alone. And obviously this leads to his actions, which kind of makes sense in the whole context of the story. But yeah, you really feel for him when you get inside of his head and his point of view, and all he wants is love and recognition. That is Frankenstein. Okay, next up we come to a whole range of different 4-star reads for me. This was a pleasant surprise, The Shrinking Man by Richard Matheson. Now, when you look at the cover, I honestly thought this was a tiny little man fighting a spider, and not much more about the plot, and not much depth to the story. But as I said in my review, it is so much more than that. And this man who has everything, he has a wife, he has a kid, he has a job, he has a life. Everything is stripped away from him. His humanity, his manhood, pretty much everything. So all that's left is this little guy fighting for survival against a spider, but also trying to find out what the meaning of life is. What is the purpose of him carrying on? And so, yeah, this book had all sorts of very interesting things to say about ourselves, about our humanity, and what would happen to us if this terrible thing happened. We can't control it. I mean, there's nothing he can do about it. There's no doctor, there's no medicine that can actually help him, and he just has to live with it and deal with it himself. And that was quite tragic. That is The Shrinking Man. Next we have the first book that I read from my Kindle, and that is The Ha by David Sodergren. Now this was recommended to me, and it was an absolutely fantastic read. It's very much a folk horror with a lot of heart. Very gory, a lot of body horror and stuff like that, but it was just so well done, and it was so cleverly done. And it's about basically this woman, this 84-year-old woman, whose name is Muriel, and she has to fight back against these developers. She's living in this little seaside village, and she has to fight back because they want to turn the whole town into a golf estate. Now, Muriel must be one of the most awesome characters I've read this year. She's just feisty, she's determined, and she's not going to give up her home without a fight. And as I said in the review, she gets help from the most unusual of places, and it's just a really good story, really exciting, really horrifying. Like I say, it's a really good body horror. That is The Ha. And I'm definitely going to be looking for more of this author's work. I've been recommended a few other titles, so I'm going to track them down on my Kindle. That is The Ha. Next up was my first Alan Dean Foster novel, To the Vanishing Points. I still just absolutely love this cover, look at that. And this was a mix of fantasy, science fiction, horror, and it's basically a family on vacation to Vegas. They take a road trip in this motorhome, and things go to hell and beyond, way beyond. They pick up this beautiful hitchhiker. I am kind of repeating what I said in my mini review the other day, but yeah, they pick up this hitchhiker and things take a turn for the worse, or better, or whatever, but their holiday becomes very, very interesting. And I just love this because it's just all kind of weird, all kind of wonderful, and there are some very, very bizarre scenes in there as well. So I suppose you could actually call it weird fiction, bizarre fiction, and it just had so much going for it. There's such incredible world building. And yeah, just really, really, really enjoyed this story. That is To the Vanishing Point. Okay, next up we have a novel I have not spoken about. This was my last read. And it is an excellent horror novel, a coming of age novel. And yeah, it's got serious It vibes. And I think what I'm going to do is Summer of Night, Dan Simmons. I'm going to do another review where I'm actually going to compare this to It, because there are similarities, and obviously there are also big differences as well. But I think it would be a fun video to compare these two books together. The novel is set in New Haven, a small town in America, and it is 1960. And you get a group of boys, they call themselves the Bike Patrol rather, and they go to battle this ancient evil that's in this town. Now, at the center of the story is this school, this old school, that is going to be done away with. This basically, they're at the beginning of their holiday and they leave the school, and the school is dark and foreboding and obviously carries secrets, because this kid disappears on the last day of school, and all sorts of dreadful things happen that keep kind of pointing back towards the school. Now, as I said, I'm going to do a full review on this novel. It is terrifying and horrifying. He writes really, really well. His characterization is awesome. The boys, the description of the boys and their background, very similar to It. They're kind of all slightly different. It's just one thing that stopped this becoming a 5-star for me. Perhaps I just wanted more. You know, there's a slow build-up of tension and of horror. There's all sorts of these things that happen around the town, but I just wanted more from the ending. Not that it was a bad ending, it was a good ending. But like with It, I wanted maybe something more cosmic horror, something like that. Not necessarily cosmic horror, but I just felt that with all the build-up and everything that happened in this novel, ending was just a little bit of a letdown for me. And I'm just short of calling this a 5-star read. I love Dan Simmons' Carry and Comfort. So he writes really, really well. But this was, and of course, The Terror, my favorite book this year. But yeah, this fell just short of a 5-star for me. Still a very excellent book and well worth the effort. That's Dan Simmons' Summer of Night. Okay, the final two books that I read are both by booktubers. I'll actually link their name in the description box below. The first one is a very, very short book with 3 very punchy horror tales. And that is The Hero, The Fear and the Date by Rod Gilly. And this was a big surprise to me. I really enjoyed it. It didn't take me more than, 45 minutes to read all 3 stories. But man, they packed a punch. It's like a real kick in the gut, like a shock ending, a twist ending for each one of those stories. And I'm looking forward to reading more from him, something maybe a little bit longer, like a novella. And I think he is working on a novel as well, which I said in my last review. So yeah, this guy's got a lot of potential. I really enjoyed that story. The second booktuber is J.R. Carell. Now, he's More Than a Vampire was my only 5-star read, just because it was the most exciting damn story I read this month. It was entertaining as hell, and I think the only complaint I had was right at the beginning, where I wanted to know more about Dracula and maybe a little bit more depth in their character. But the rest of the story was just wild. Kind of a Romeo and Juliet kind of vampire story, where these 2 vampires shouldn't be in love, but they are, and they're trying to stay together. And yeah, the 2 different clans are not amused with the way that they're behaving. There's also sex in the story as well, which is quite entertainingly done. But yeah, just a very fun, exciting read. Lots of violence, lots of adventure. Not really a horror, but just a violent adventure story. Fantastical with these creatures. And as I said, myths, monsters, all sorts of stuff comes into this tale. And once I got into it, I could not put it down. That is a 5-star for me. That is More Than a Vampire. Okay everyone, that's my reading for the month of June. Let me know what you think. How many of those books have you read? And do you agree with my rating system? Did you perhaps find that some of those books I should have rated higher or lower, just let me know what you think in the comments section, deep dark down below. And anyway, please like and subscribe if you enjoy this content, and take care of yourselves. Keep those pages turning, and cheers.